Hello, friends. Mary here with Boomers Blooming. How are you all today? Hope all is well and everything's going along just fine. I wanted to talk on a topic today that concerns speakerphones. Now, we have speakerphones on our home landline phones because I have one on my home landline phone. And I also have speakerphone on my mobile phone. And I like to use the speakerphone a lot because it's convenient. You can be busy and you can put the other party on the other line on speakerphone, and you can make a cup of coffee, or you can make a sandwich, or you can just relax and talk to that person. Now, I have a girlfriend that lives in one of the northern states. She and I went to school together, and we use speakerphones when we talk. Now, she was not using her speakerphone up until, say, maybe the first of the year, because she was actually holding the phone to her ear. Her cell phone and her house phone she was holding to her ear. So we were talking one day and I couldn't hear her very well. And I said, "Are you holding your phone to your ear?" And she said, "Sure." I said, "Well, why don't you use the speakerphone? Because you live alone. There's no one in the house but you and your little furry pet. And he's not going to talk about our conversation, such as Charlie's not going to talk about our conversation." And so she said, "I never thought of that," because she's older. And she said, "How do you use the speakerphone?" And so I told her. She loves that speakerphone on her house phone and on her mobile phone. She said, "Because I can lay it down, I can hear better, and I'm not holding it to my ear." But until the first of the year, she didn't know how to use the speakerphone. Well, I've been using the speakerphone for years. Like I say, I use it on my house phone, and I also use it on my mobile phone. Now, here's the thing about using the speakerphone, because I had a conversation with a friend not too long ago. When you use a speakerphone, you have to be careful. Not that you're passing any gossip or anything like that. And even if you are, you got to be careful. But because I live alone, and because the majority of the time it's just myself and my little dog in my house, I can use the speakerphone because no one else is hearing me in my home. They're not, they're hearing me, but they're not hearing the conversation of the other person. That's what I'm trying to say. I can use the speakerphone in my home because I live alone and no one's here to hear the conversation. They're not here to hear my conversation, and they're not here to hear the conversation from the other party on the other end of the phone. Because when you use a speakerphone, whoever is in that house with you can hear that other person's response and conversation on the other end. Okay? So since I live alone, and since she lives alone, we have no problem with using the speakerphone because the conversation back and forth is between she and I. So I was having a conversation with like I said, not too long ago, with a couple of friends. And one friend was complaining about someone using the speakerphone, but there's someone else in the house that can hear her talking to the person on the other end. You see what I'm saying? You all know how those speakerphones work. And so she got a little upset because she thought that conversation was private. But when you're talking on a speakerphone, if I'm talking on a speakerphone to my girlfriend up north and she has someone in her house, they hear our conversation. Not only her conversation, but my response and my conversation because she has me on speakerphone. Okay? That can be a problem. It has been a problem for me also. I have had to tell people, because I hear people in the background on the other end and they're talking, and they sometimes are talking to the person that's talking to me. And so I hear their conversation, and I know when I respond on my end to the person that I'm talking to, they're hearing my conversation. And so I don't like that. I really don't. Not that I'm talking about anybody, but it's just the privacy of it. Having that privacy. So I have had to say to certain people, take me off the speakerphone. You have someone in your house, and I don't want them to hear our conversation, especially me conversating with you. They're hearing our conversation both ways, you and me. So, take me off speakerphone. Because I don't think it's right to have conversations with people if you have people in your home. Now, I can do it here because I live alone. And whatever I say on the phone, on the speakerphone, and the person who responds on the other end is not being heard by anybody but me. You see what I'm saying? It's being heard by no one but me because I live alone and I'm in the house alone. Same thing with my girlfriend. She's in her house alone. So we can talk freely with her on the speakerphone. She can lay it down, make her a cup of coffee. I can lay mine down, make a cup of tea, and I don't have to have that phone up at my ear. That's the purpose of a speakerphone. The problem comes in when there are other people in the house and they're hearing the two-way conversation. You know, you have to be careful about that. There has been a lot of problems started, not necessarily with me, but a lot of problems have started over people overhearing conversations on the speakerphone, not being alone, not being in a situation where you can safely use that speakerphone on that phone, whether it's on your house or whether it's on your mobile phone. You know, I happen to believe that conversations are between the two people, the one that's on the end A and the one that's on the end B. That's the way I came up, and that's the way it used to be. But now with the speakerphone, you can be in your house and say, for instance, have a neighbor sitting there beside you. But you're talking to a friend and you have them on speakerphone. Well, that neighbor is going to hear the conversation both ways. And they're going to hear the conversation coming from the friend that is not in your home. They'll sit there and they can hear you speaking, of course, and they can also hear the person's response, because that person, I would have my phone on the speakerphone. My phone is on the speakerphone, and so when that person on the end is speaking to me, anyone in my house can hear the response. I personally believe that when you're talking to somebody, that call should be personal. Not that it's so full of personal information like your social security number and your birth date. No. But when you talking to somebody, you're talking to them, not someone that's in the house, not a boyfriend, not a husband, not a mate, not a neighbor, not a child. And if you're talking to them and on that other end they have you on speakerphone, the whole conversation is heard and what you're saying is heard. You know, that's a private conversation between two people, and I don't think anyone else should be able or available or in that space to hear the conversation. So, my girlfriend that lives up north, like I said, she lives alone, and she uses the speakerphone on her house phone and her mobile phone when we talk because it's more convenient for her. And I use it when we talk because it's more convenient for me. We don't have to just sit and hold the phone like that. You could actually lay it down. You can put it on the counter next to you and they can hear you talk. But here's the problem. You got to be careful about that because I believe conversations between two people are personal. And unless that person says to you, I have you on speakerphone, Mary, and now you are aware of it. You are aware that that person you're talking to has you on speakerphone. On that speaker option on their phone. It's an option on your phone where you can hit that little button and it will go to speakerphone. And you don't have to hold it up to your ear, or you don't have to have it close to your face. Now, like I said, if someone says, I have you on speakerphone. Now, this has happened to me before. I've been driving in my car, and I get a call, and my cell phone is Bluetooth, so it comes in through the car. I can actually see who's calling. Now, if I have someone in the car, say for instance, if I have my granddaughter, or I have a friend, or I have just someone else, I'm not in that car alone, I would quickly say, I have you on speakerphone. You're on speakerphone now. So they will know whatever they have to say to me is not just being heard by me, but it's being heard by those people in the car. I think that's respect. I have gotten calls from people, and I do that. I have called people, and out of their courtesy, they'll say, I have you on speakerphone. Hold on now, I have you on speakerphone. And then they'll say things like, my sister is here. And then the sister say, hey, how you doing, Mary? Because they can hear the conversation. But that person who answered that phone said, I have you on speakerphone, Mary. And I've also had people to say, I have you on speakerphone. Be careful of what you say. I'm not alone. Because those calls are private between two people. But when you hit that option there, speakerphone, and you are among other people, you're not alone, then it broadens out. All those people in that room, or at that table, or in that den, however many, can hear the whole conversation. Sometimes without your knowledge. Now, I think that's a real problem with the option on these phones to tap that little speakerphone out. Oh yeah, it is very convenient. It is easy. It is easy to place a call on speakerphone, lay that receiver down, and talk. Drink coffee, like I said, get you some iced tea, swing on the porch in your swing, all the while you are talking to that individual. But here's the thing. I don't have a problem with it in my home because pretty much no one is here but my little dog. But when my children come over or my grandchildren come over or a friend comes over and someone calls me, I don't hit the option speakerphone. Now, they may have speakerphone in their home where they live, but if I have company in my home, I'm not going to use that option of speakerphone, because the people in my home don't need to know the conversation, and they don't need to know the conversation on the other end. That is who I'm talking to. Unless I say, do you mind? My daughter is here, my granddaughter is here. You want to say hello to them? Because I have you on speakerphone. So, when my friend out of town and I talk, we both use speakerphones. She's on her speakerphone, and I'm on my speakerphone, and we can talk for hours. Sometimes we talk for hours. Catching up on what's going on, catching up world events and current events and what's going on in the world and what's going on in our lives. We can talk for hours, and we don't have to sit there and hold that phone like that. Because when I first told my girlfriend about it the first part of the year, she was amazed. She had been holding that phone. Now, she had been holding the phone, but guess what? I had her on speakerphone. I can do it when I'm alone. But it's rude, it's improper, it's poor etiquette when you have someone in your home and you put that phone on speakerphone. You see what I'm saying? Now, I have had to speak to some people because I hear noise, I hear comments being made about what we're talking about. I'm like, do you have me on speakerphone? Are you there alone? Well, no. But then you need to take me off speakerphone. Because I don't want this conversation to go between anybody but you and I. People have gotten in a lot of trouble by talking to people and having that speakerphone on where other people can hear that conversation. Be careful with that. I would suggest to be very careful with that. Because like I say, if I'm in my car, or if I'm in a restaurant, or if I'm just wherever I am and I get a call and I'm so used to mashing that speakerphone button, I quickly say, hold on, I have you on speakerphone. Let me go back to the regular dial on the phone. Because that conversation is between us. In other words, you don't want a third party listening to that conversation, whether on one end of that line or on the other end. I can remember, we never had, I don't think when I was growing up, I don't think we ever had a second party line. So I'm not really familiar with a second party line. And I think the way it worked, and you can put down in the comments if I'm wrong about this, or how a second party line worked. That's when they had those phones and more than one people shared that, I guess, that telephone number or that line, probably that telephone line. And the other person could hear the other person talking. I guess that's how that went. I watched this old black and white movie one time. And it had, what's the blonde? I can't think of her name now. Pillow Talk. The name of it was Pillow Talk. And they had this type of phone. They lived in this apartment. And I'm trying to think that the blonde, I don't know why her name won't come to me. But, and I don't know if Cary Grant starred in that picture or who it was. But anyway, they lived in the same apartment. Well, they lived in the same apartment building in different apartments, but they shared the same line. So she had a business and she had to make important calls and receive calls. He was a gigolo. Nice looking guy. He lived alone. He was a bachelor. And he had all of these women calling him. He would talk to these women all day long, half the night, and all this kind of thing. And she would get on the phone and say, I need you to get off the phone. It's not your time to be on this phone. I need to use the phone. Because they had set up a schedule where he was supposed to use that telephone line at a certain time, and she was supposed to use the telephone line at a certain time. But because he was so infatuated with these women and he had so many girlfriends, he used his time and hers, and she would get so angry. And I wished I could think of her name. She played in a lot of movies. Real pretty girl. She was a blonde. What was her name? But anyway, they had friction there because she would get on the line and she would hear him talking to those women. And she would get mad and she would tell him, get off this line. It's my time to use it. But the way the story went on is that in the very end of the story, they got together and they got married, the both of them. So it's a cute comedy. It's a very cute comedy. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying my best to let that file folder roll up so I could tell you I know it's called Pillow Talk. And I could see the actress and the actor now. I just can't really call their names. But anyway, I think that was called a two-party line. They had different phones. She lived in the same apartment complex, and I think he lived upstairs, and she had her phone and he had his phone, but they were tied together because it was a two-party line. Well, if I'm correct, and you all put down in the comments, because some of you all probably remember that. I don't really remember having a two-party line and exactly. I'm pretty sure my mother and them had a two-party line, I guess. But put down there in the comments your experience with it. I guess they call them two-party lines. So, getting back to what I was saying about the, about the speakerphone. It kind of reminds me of a two-party line wherein your conversation between two people is no longer between two people. You have other people in the conversation that you can hear. I had a brother that passed last year, and I have a brother that lives in the state that I live in. He doesn't live that far from me. They're older. My brother is older, and my brother that passed last year, he was older. So sometimes I would call one of them, and I would have my line on the speakerphone, and I would do a three-way call so we all three could talk together at one time. That modern technology can be great. I think about that now since my brother is gone, and I think about having my two brothers and myself on the phone on a three-way talking together, because my other brother lived upstate and we very seldom saw him. And so I would purposely call my brother and I said, would you like to talk to your other brother? He would say yes. And I said, okay, then I'm going to reach out to him and we're going to do a three-way call. Those three-way calls are wonderful, but you have to watch those too now, okay? So modern technology on these phones, I'm not speaking against it. You just got to be careful with it, especially speakerphones. People who can hear the conversations that shouldn't be involved in the conversations. Put down in the comments some of your experiences with speakerphone. And if you've had any run-ins, any incidents using the speakerphone, either on your house phone or your cell phone. It makes it so convenient. And most of my calls are by speakerphone because I'm the only one in the house. Now, when I have company, I don't make those type of calls. I don't use that speakerphone button. And I will hope that other people on the other end of that telephone conversation would respect me the way I respect them. That if there's someone in their home, they would not match that speakerphone where that other person can hear me talking to them, can hear the conversation. I would hope that they would respect my privacy. I would hope that if I'm on speakerphone on their end, they would say, Mary, I have you on speakerphone, and give me the option to say, take me off speakerphone, please. I don't want to be on speakerphone. You know, I think that's rude. I think it's in poor taste. I think that when you call somebody and they have you on speakerphone and you hear all the children in the background and they're hearing adult conversation, I think that's bad. I think when you call someone and they have you on speakerphone and they may have a significant other sitting up there listening to the conversation because it's on speakerphone, that is rude and that is in bad taste. Okay? And I know the convenience of speakerphone, and I think some people do it deliberately. That is in poor taste, and that is not a good thing to do. That very thing has caused a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. He said, she said, they did. A lot of problems. Because you don't ever know if, say for instance, if someone called me and I have guests in my home, you don't ever know, and I have them on speakerphone, you don't ever know what they may say to me, that they may not want it to be shared nor heard by the person that's in my home. You see what I'm saying? So I don't do that. Like I said, if I'm in my car and I get a call, I'll say, okay, I'm on speakerphone, so-and-so. Let me take you off speakerphone. And this is another thing. I don't even like to talk to anyone in my car off speakerphone if there's someone in my car because they're hearing my conversation. Those conversations are personal and private. You know? And if I'm home, like I said, and I have friends or family here, and I get a call from my girlfriend up north, I don't put it on speakerphone because now they're going to hear her conversation and what she's saying to me. So I don't even go there. If I see it's her and I got people in my home, I'll either do one or two things. I'll say, you know, I have some guests in my home. Can I call you back? Or I would say, I have you on speakerphone. I would let them know. Would you like to say hello to so-and-so? Because I think that's the thing to do. That's the right thing to do. But you know, with all of these cameras and cameras are not bad. You know, because I have cameras in my house that watch my house when I'm away. I have cameras on the outside and I've got inner cameras that watch my dwelling and the outside of my dwelling when I'm away. That's not a bad thing. So I'm not speaking against the technology. What I'm speaking against is the use, the unwarranted use of technology. Taking it to another level where it shouldn't be taken. That's what I'm talking about. The what's that word? Right now I can only think the use of the speakerphones in a way that they shouldn't be used. Okay? They weren't designed to actually snoop on conversations or be set up where other people can hear your conversations. I believe speakerphones were designed to be easy to talk over and not sit and hold the phone, lay the phone down, make you a cup of coffee, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or whatever. Long as you're in the room with that phone and you're not too far from it, the people on the other end can hear your conversation. And I'm gonna tell you one thing. When I told my girlfriend about speakerphone the early part of the year, the sound and the conversation got better. I could hear better, is what I'm saying. I could hear better when she put her phone on speakerphone than holding it up at her ear. But see, like I say, she lives alone too. So when we communicate between each other, there's no problem. There's no one in her house to hear the conversation. There's no one in my house to hear the conversation. Speakerphones are good for that. But involving other people and not letting people know that they have you on speakerphone, that's rude, very rude, and very inappropriate. And I've had to tell some people that too. Look, do you have me on speakerphone? Well, look, let's talk later. Do you have me on speakerphone? Take me off speakerphone. If you don't have time to talk to me, if you're busy and you must have me on speakerphone, let's just talk later. You see, that's the way to handle it. So put down there in the comments what you think about this. The incidents, if any, you've had. A lot of times you got to make sure when you take those calls that call is not on speakerphone. You have to make sure. I think some accidents happen and people hear conversations they shouldn't hear because you're not aware that call is on speakerphone. You're in your house, someone calls you, you take the call on speakerphone, and you're so used to having the speakerphone and talking through the speakerphone, you forget you got people in your house, they're moving around, and they're listening to the conversation. So you have to be aware, and you have to treat people with respect. See, respect. And I know we live in a day and time now where people would say, some people, not all people. Well, what is respect? Respect is respecting that other person, their needs, their wants. Those need to be respected. So I don't have a big problem with this. Now, I talk to some people, they have a big problem with this. Big problem. They complain, they call somebody and all this ruckus is going on the other end and people are listening to the conversation and, man, this is terrible. It's disrespectful. It's in poor taste. It's poor etiquette. And I could go on and on if the file folder would roll up and I could think about the words I'm trying to get up here. So friends, let me know what you think about this. Because I know people use speakerphones all the time. And it's like I said, I really don't have a problem with it because most of the time I'm here. And Charlie is not going to talk. When I talk to my girlfriend up north, she has a dog also. And so when we're talking, I can hear her dog barking and she can hear my dog barking. But we know they're not going to talk. And we know they're not going to get in our conversation either. And we know we're not going to hear it again. Okay? See, that's another thing. People repeat stuff. People talk and they repeat stuff. And to cut down on the confusion, because there can be a lot of confusion, you just respect other people's privacy. And you just don't do these things. I was up at the restaurant, this has probably been about 4 months ago, and it was this, we were checking out is what it was, and it was this guy, he had on these glasses, and so he had these little things on the side of the glasses, and so as we were standing there waiting to check out, I noticed that, and I said, those glasses are nice, but they're a little bit different. He had these glasses on that had cameras in them. They had many small, I call them mini, M-I-N-I, small cameras. And I think they were right in here. And all he had to do, and I think he may have had an app on his phone that he could turn these cameras on. So he's looking at you, but he's really recording you. Because they have these, and I'm like, and he told me that. And he took them off, and he wiped them off, and he said, you want to see? And I said, yeah. So I put them on, I'll be doggone. He said, now do this, or he did, or whatever, and it started recording. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, I guess, because some of these people you probably might not ever see again. And I'm a people watcher, you know, and I have myself just sit in my car and record strangers and the activities of people, you know, not with glasses, but, you know, with my cell phone. But I've come to the decision, to the conclusion, that maybe that's not a good thing, you know. People watching is fine. But recording people and they're not being aware of being recorded, I don't know, I got to think about that. I really have. You know, but you know, people they do it all the time, not just with these glasses, but with the camera. That's why you see so much on TV. You know, when they have fights that break out in Walmart, you know, people are recording them and they putting them on social media and all of that. So it's out there. But you know, I started thinking about that, and I'm like, now, I got to really think about that. People watching, people you'll never see again. And people are funny. And so it's good. It's not, I enjoy watching people. And you might want to record. You know. Put down in the comments if you all do anything like that. Because I don't know if I'm going to make another video like that. I really don't. Because I have to really think about that. You know, because we live in a world of such invasion in our privacy. You know, such invasions in our privacy. You know, I was talking to a friend, and they were telling me about you guys. I'm like, come on now, get real. They were telling me like they have these little tiny cameras that they can actually hide in hotel rooms, and you'll never see them. They're so inconspicuous, and people don't know they're being filmed. And I'm like, well, wow. Yeah, they're real tiny, and they can set them up in the say on a counter, or right there, right up under the television where you can't see. Whew, and that's scary. You in a hotel room, you know, you might be undressing or taking a shower, and there's a camera moving and watching what you're doing and videotaping you. That's terrible. That's just terrible. But that's what's happening. That's the negative side of technology. See, I feel when things are created that are good, there's always going to be a perversion of those good things. When things are created to help people to make life much easier, there's always going to be room for perversion and unlawful use, and you see that with credit cards and stuff and bank account. So it's going to always have a door open to unlawful use, negative use, and use of that item or that technology that was not intended for. It's going to always happen. However good that technology could be, you're going to always have the other side of it. You all know what I mean. We live in this age now where that happens. And so getting back to the speakerphone, I don't do that. That's one thing I don't do. I don't record people. I don't, on that speakerphone, I don't, I don't have conversations with people in my house while I'm on the phone with somebody out of town or a family member or a friend, and I have them on speakerphone and people are in my house listening to the conversation, I don't do that. Now, I like speakerphone, and I use it all the time, but not when people are in my house. Not when someone is around to hear, not in my car, when I have riders in my car. I don't think that's right. I think that's very poor etiquette. I think it's an attack against privacy, you know. So I'm going to let you go because I see this video is getting... But you know, this is an interesting topic that we're talking about here. Put down in the comments what you feel about this. You may feel it's okay. No problem. I love speakerphone. No problem with me. That's the way you may feel. You may say, I use it all the time. And my friends and people sitting, they don't care. That may be how you see it, how you do it. However you do it, that's all right. I'm just not going to do it. You see what I'm saying? So put down there in the comments what your thoughts are when it comes to this type of, I call it privacy invasion. Because I think when two people are talking, it's between the two people, it's a person to call. Unless there's an agreement for the speakerphone. And there could be now an agreement. Okay? I would love to hear from you guys on this, because this is a hot topic. We had this discussion at the table, and I'm like, well, wow. Let me think about this. Yes. Look, if you like my content, please give me a thumbs up. If you just like me, my laid-back personality, the way I talk, or whatever. If you just like me, want to see more of my videos. I got about 100 and, I think I got 100 and, almost 160 videos out there. So, if you like me, if you want to see more of me, most of my videos are on different topics. A lot of them bring information. Some of them bring encouragement. And some of them are just like this. What do you think about it? So, if you like me and you want to watch more of my videos, please subscribe to Boomers Blooming. Boomers Blooming. There's no charge for it. It's not going to grab your credit card and jerk it. You're not going to get a bill in the mail. It's not going to steal your email. All it does is let you know the next time I post a new video. And I've got some interesting videos out there, and I've got some interesting videos to come. And I'm going to be asking you guys, what do you think? You know, it's that show that they stage all of these different things on. And then I think the name of the show is What Do You Think? You know, what do you think? It's staged. These events are staged. What these people do is staged. And then they want to know, well, what do you think? The public, what do you think? I think that's the name of it. So, what do you think? Okay? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Or what do you think? Because we all have opinions. Okay? So I'm going to let you all go. Stay safe. Stay informed too. The times that we live in, it's very important to stay informed. Stay safe and be blessed. Goodbye.